All right, guys, I went insane, cut all my hair off, and now we're in military mode where we just go hard. So I'm going to be dropping the hardest videos for you guys in the next coming week, and I need you guys to give me what you want to see next or what you struggle with in the comments below. Today, we're going to focus on guitar melodies, and we're going to use this plugin called Ample Guitar, or excuse me, Ample Sound. Yeah, Ample Guitar L. So it stands for luthier. This is a nylon guitar, and I'm going to show you in this video how to create melodies from scratch. All right, so the first thing is we're going to use what's called raised thirds. So if you're a beginner with music theory, no worries. Let's right click, go to piano roll. Okay, so we can create what's called a triad. This is a 3-note chord. Okay, so if I start here at G, for example, and I want to make a minor chord, the minor chord has a chord code. What I mean by chord code is think of every chord as like having its own DNA sequence. So for example, if I want to make a minor chord, let's use the chord code 037. 0 is the root note wherever you start. And then you just count up your keyboard until you finish out this chord code. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 037, and it always plays a minor chord. Now what we'll do here, the first technique I'm going to show you is really basic, but it's really effective. And it's simply taking this middle note. This is called the minor third for those who want to know the geeky term about it. Okay. We're going to take this note and we're going to hit Control up to pull it up an octave. And this is a very melodic way to play your guitar. And what you can do, even if you just wanted to like, let's speed up the tempo. And then, and now you can just go by ear. You can hit Shift and just left click and drag it around. Now this sounds wrong. So what we're going to do is pull this back down just to see what kind of chord type it is. And the short answer is if we want to convert this to a major, this sounds more complicated than what it is, trust me. If we want to convert this to a major, we need to take these bottom notes and just pull them down one. So if it sounds wrong, just take these bottom notes and pull them down one, hit Shift down. And then dun. So let's see how I'm letting my ear guide me through. I'm not like worried about the technical. I'm saying, what does my ear want to hear? It's hearing this. Okay, and that's what guides people through our chord progressions. So chord progressions are really just melodies in disguise. And this sounds wrong. So let's grab these bottom two, hit Shift down. See how that feels right, so to speak? Now there's no right answer technically, but it feels more natural. Okay, now we can use this as a chord harmony layer. So if we're creating melodies, there's 4 layers to a melody. You have the top line. This is the memorable parts of the melody. You have your harmony section. This is your chord part. This is the glue to the track. You have what's called a contrast layer. This is your like counter melody. And then you have the rhythm part of the melody. Now, these can all be interchanged. There's no like, it doesn't have to be in 4 separate things all of the time. And now let's go to a different plugin here where we can play, different notes. So let's go to the top line. And now I'm going to show you guys even more melodic stuff here. So now that you understand the basics of just raising the third of a triad or a 3-note chord, it gets even more complex than that. All right, so let's go to song mode here, and we're going to overlay. Actually, let's do this on the same pattern so you guys can see. I forgot FL has that feature. Let's right click, go to piano roll. Now, normally I do not produce with my stuff combined like this. This is only a teaching technique, okay? So don't get in the habit of slapping everything on one pattern because you want to create variations over time. So this is not to be copied, basically, is what I'm saying here. So what we want to do now is try mapping out this chord one more time. Now the secret to melody is understanding harmony. Okay, so let's map out these chords. G minor. I'm going to write them in the triad position so that we can understand what I'm talking about first. And we have, what is this? D, root note, perfect fifth, and then we have G. Okay, so it's a minor chord or minor triad, then it's a major triad, and then another major triad. Triad meaning 3-note chord. Now, what I'm going to show you guys is how to expand this into a deeper concept. And I learned part of this from Jeff Schneider. Shout out to Jeff Schneider. Is we are going to use what's called the 7th. Actually, no, he teaches the 10th, pardon me, which is a whole nother concept, which I got to show you guys that too. But what we're going to do here is expand this chord type. So this is not from Jeff. This is just my own understanding. We're going to expand this chord type to what's called the seventh. This requires a little bit more teaching, which I go through at busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials. I go through every single step about, even if you know nothing about music theory, I could show you guys everything you need to know to get proper music theory. So we just don't have time in this video. It could take 5 hours to teach you that. So in short, I'm going to create the seventh chord per each one of these chords. And the simple way to do it is take the middle note, the third, and just count up 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I don't even have to know a lot of things. As long as I can count. We're going to take this middle note, pull it up 7 notes, hit shift up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. Now we're extending these into what's called seventh chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And not because of the number 7. Okay, so now we need to revoice this chord. And what we need to do here is omit what's called the fifth. So we're going to take out this third note here and just remove it completely. So now we have a triad omitting the fifth, but we include what's called the seventh. It sounds more complicated than what it is. So now we're adding a note in here. So these can be used as like color tones. See how we have like a call and response? This could be the main part of the chord is the call, and then this is the response. Now we don't have to play these notes, on the downbeat like this. We can switch it up. See how it feels very melodic? Let's do the same thing here. It's going to repeat, same pattern here. So see how it animated those chords? Instead of, let's just let that one ride out. I feel like it does need another rhythm, but for this video, we'll just keep it simple. You guys will get the project files for free too. If you go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory, you'll get these for free. So it looks like we wrote chords, but really we wrote a melody. That's because melody is essentially chords broken apart into pieces. It's just the chords usually play all at the same time, like the timing of the chord, I should say. Now let's add something called the 10th. Now to do this, I'm going to demonstrate on a separate pattern here. So firstly, let's talk about just guitar melodies in general. When people are playing guitars, it's not as easy to make really big chords as it is on piano. So they have to kind of sacrifice some notes sometimes for chords, or revoice the chord to where it's not your typical just play up the keyboard and get all of the notes in a row. So one of those chords you guys want to learn is the minor add 9 chord. It's usually the minor chord that does this. Major add 9 is a different sound. It's just technically just a different sound. So we're going to take that same minor chord, which is 0, 3, 7. And we're going to take what's called the perfect fifth this time. Remember before we took the third and we raised that up 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, now we can't, that creates a seventh chord. But now what we're going to do is take the perfect fifth, which is the note that's 7 notes away from the tonic note here. The top note, we're going to take this out of our triad, copy it, and hit shift up 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is called an add 9 chord. It's because we're omitting what's called the seventh. So this is going to be named by the way the notes are voiced. So it's a minor chord down here, and then we're skipping the seventh, and then we're adding the 9th chord extension. That's where the name comes from. Okay, so the way you would play this is just simply 4 notes, usually in a row like this. Now you can switch up the timing, but let's pull this down an octave. Actually, let's play all at once, and then we'll use the other. And I'm just going to use my ear. Dun, dun, dun. And now my ear says, something's wrong about this. And again, we're going to take that third, raise it up, semitone. Dun. And not every, plugin goes this low, so we just got to be careful there. Okay, so this feels wrong, so let's take that third, pull it down. Now again, we're in the range where we might trigger what's called a key switch. Okay, so this is the area where it's a little tricky with certain plugins because of the way this is sampled. See, we can only go down to this low E before it starts getting crazy. And then we can go down. Now this plugin specifically, we could take off what's called the playing styles here. So it says auto legato. Let's just turn that off. And we could also switch this to what's called keyboard mode. So we could play as if it's like a piano. And I found that now we're playing really just basic notes that have no velocity difference. So everything just sounds the same. Normally, I play this a little bit softer. But let's just assume you guys don't have that much finesse. See how it's just a different sound? Boom, everything's slammed on. Let's also take off some of these effects. We don't need these. See how that velocity difference makes a huge difference. Anyhow, let's go to the second guitar here. Now here we're going to use what are called tenths. And this is something I learned from Jeff Schneider. Shout out to him. It's just not that I learned what tenths were, but just thinking of it as a tenth as opposed to the raised third. It sounds way more complicated than what it is. So when you get into deeper music theory, you'll learn where these scale degrees come from. You know, I don't have time to explain everything. But basically what we're going to do is just raise the third of each chord. So this middle note here, we're going to add that to each melodic note here. And we're just going to pull these up an octave. And this becomes our melodic note. It's going to be hard to tell the difference here. So we have to create a time difference because everything's playing at the same time. And now we can create a flow. Okay, so again, there's a lot that I have to teach here, but if you guys go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials, there's a course in there called the Music Theory Magic Course, and it covers a lot of what I'm about to say. So basically, we have to go from we're going from E, we're going up a half step, and then we're resolving back down a half step. So that's usually what half steps want to do, is come back down. Now here we can be a little more creative. Now, if you guys look for a note, like the next note, if you struggle with that, like which note should I add next? Think about perfect fifths. So D to A is really a perfect fifth in distance. Okay, a perfect fifth is either 7 notes upward or it's 5 notes downward. So really we're just going from D to the perfect fifth. And perfect fifths are usually our salvation in all things melody, because they want to resolve to what's called the tonic. So we're making super slow melodies here with no like human touch to it, but wanted to show you guys, if you didn't have MIDI controllers, this is how to get the vibe. Let's go back to the playlist here and let's see these back to back. Okay, so see how it starts with that basic concept. Now I'm going to create from scratch. I have no script about this. This is just all freestyle. And we're going to do that same concept. We're going to start with the chords first. So this is, again, there's a lot to teach here. What we're going to do is play a power chord, which is the root note, count up 7 notes, and then add the root note again. This is called a power chord. Okay, this is also called quintal harmony. Right, technically chordal harmony, because you're going up. If E is the root note, you're going up 5 notes as a quartal interval. So that would be chordal harmony. But anyhow, we're not going to get into the weeds. Let's just play these power chords here. That's one way to play it. And it's also a great way to play your electric guitars. But instead of, actually, let me start with, I want to play the 7th without the 5th. I think that's going to be a nice, let's do like an R&B vibe. So let's play D. Let's also add what's called the ninth. So now I'm getting really exotic. This is why I should have just stuck to the basic stuff. But now I'm thinking deeper into music theory. I just love really big chords. So here we're omitting what's called the fifth, and we're playing a ninth chord. It has a really nice sound to it. So now I'm just thinking in my head, which ninth chords sound good? So I know that A minor ninth sounds amazing. Okay, so let's play some chords, something like that. I'm going to get a little more fancy. Of course, my finger hit the wrong note. All right, so one of these notes is wrong. I think it's this chord here. It's hard to tell when everything's like all over the place. Let's just listen in. So we want more of the R&B route. I think it's this chord here. There we go. Okay, now we have the harmony section. This is going to create the groove, metaphorically speaking, for the melody. When you have a good harmony, it's like the melody just generates itself. And now we can use those concepts like raised thirds, adding the ninth, using the 10th. It sounds more convoluted than what it is. But basically, you're just raising the third up. So as long as you know your chords, basically. So let's double click in here. So the first chord was D, and then we went to A, and then we went to B flat, back to E. I don't remember that chord. I guess we did E with the A at the base. Oh, okay, I know what chord that is. And then we did D, and then we did a substitution. This is the chord that I meant to fix. Anyhow, let's just... Again, once you get into theory, it sounds like we're speaking a different language. But again, we're just taking this triad. We're going to take this F and raise it up an octave. That should have been D. Dang. All right. See how we're just freestyling this based off of... Now I got a little tricky because I played so many chords. I really should have kept it simple and played 2 chords. But I played like 7 chords, so I kind of forgot what I played. But the philosophy can help you continue to improv without overly thinking about what should be next. Because now I'm just thinking about perfect fifths at this point. I was just playing perfect fifths. C to G is a perfect fifth. And then I played D to A, which is a perfect fifth. And then G to D is a perfect fifth. In distance, I mean. And so that's how I was moving through this chord without overly thinking at this point. I'm going to show you guys a couple of techniques I would use. One is just doubling the chords, so it's wider. So now the chords are supporting. It's a big spread of sound, and now the melody can sit in the center. And now you can add more effects to the center image. I don't usually use their effects, but let's just see what they can. Let's actually add our own, because I don't know what those are. So a couple I would add is just delay, reverb. And I might add a low pass filter to the delay so it's not so aggressive. Is that a reverb? Also, let's try pulling this up an octave. It gets a little thin, so now I'm mixing like really sloppily here with this reverb directly on the track. I usually do not mix with the reverb directly on the reverb. I mean on the guitar. Okay, now let's create. So that one, very slow. Let's create it faster. Let's go to like 90-ish. I'm going to show you guys how to create more like hip-hoppy guitars. Now, again, we're going over like, this can't be a 2-hour video. So I got to cover what I can cover in this amount of time. So one technique here is called arpeggiation. And all I'm doing is just splitting up the chord type. Okay. Which is just raising the third, which I showed you guys before. And see how I'm playing these in different time? Now the way it sounds like this is called a sustain pedal, which makes the notes overlap each other. So if you struggle with like making your guitar sound realistic, try making your notes overlap. And then we need the next chord, because that is our D minor 9th chord right here. So now we're just moving to the next chord. So we're really playing this. So let's do this in parts, because it is hard to really conceptualize it as breaking up a chord. So let's just do this in parts. So the first part is just the root note and the perfect fifth, which is 7 notes up. So this is your bouncy notes. Like we're always just bouncing between these. And the right hand is filling in with those other notes. Now we need a new chord. Okay, so we created our D minor 9th chord. Let's move to a different chord. Now I could play this chord. This is a little more convoluted because this is a substitution chord and it's altered. So this is not like a simple chord by any means. So we could take this F and pull it up an octave. So I already forgot the voicing. It's very difficult to play. That one doesn't sound as good. Spread and arpeggio style. And my ear wants to hear dun. So let's figure out what chord has the top note of D, or where D is the third. Here's where we get a little into creativity mode. But let's take this F. Sounds good here. We could do G major. We could do E minor, we could do C, which would be the 9th chord here. But the thing is, D would not be the top note. It's not the same thing. So I know this is convoluted. As I'm explaining it, it just sounds way more convoluted. We need to figure out which chord has the key D as the third of the chord. That chord is going to be a B chord. So now we need to revoice this so that D is at the top here. Okay, so that is a little convoluted. See how we're just playing a chord, but just spread out over time. That is the key. Now I'm playing a little bit slowly here, to be fair. Let's quantize this and remove overlaps. Let's up the BPM a little bit. Like if we're going Gunna, we might speed this up. Now, this didn't fit this vibe, so my ear wants to hear D. So this can also sense that we may need to add a chord in here that does not use D as the third, but as the seventh or some other part of the chord. So here's where I'll show you guys how to generate. We're getting really, really in the weeds here. But let's use E, for example. Let's pull this down. So E, we're going to strum, you know, the root note and the perfect fifth, which is 7 notes away. Now, E, G, B, D creates the seventh. Actually, what if we did C? It might work with just C, E, omit G, B, D. It may work this way, but it might sound too happy. So we just don't know. So now we have to like reverse engineer our thought process. So even, let me see, C. I keep forgetting that D would be the third in this case, but let's just assume it's not the third. So we have C, E. I don't think it's going to sound the same because of the intervallic jump we have. So solving this is where it becomes a music theory problem, I'll say, because now you have to solve like expectations. See how that's too happy? My ear wants to hear something darker. This doesn't have enough like pull for my ear, so we would have to add something in here. It's a different part of the chord. Something like that. And let's just, I'm just transposing to save time here. This part, my ear doesn't like this interval. There we go. That sounds more natural. So everything can't be this dark sound, so we need to because we're doing so much transposition here, I'm doing this by ear. So here's where we are tricking the ear because we keep D as the top note, but we're actually changing the chord type. And this is where, you know, we get into borrowed chords and modal interchange and all this type of stuff. I did not cover all this in this video, so the explanation behind this will require a little too much backstory. So we're just going to say we're doing it by ear for now. So see how it's like a story being told as opposed to just like the same chord over and over again. Another technique I like to use is moving the keys up and down. So this is a really cool technique. Usually I go up 3 keys or down 3 keys. Now because this guitar, the lowest note we could hit is this E. So we can only go 1, 2. We could literally go down 3 notes and that's it. 1, 2, 3. So now we're in a different key. This feels more country for some reason. It does feel like General Hospital soaps, but in the country. Now let's pull it up 6 semitones. So now we're going to be +3 from where we started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this might be more gonna sound. Okay, so let's add this secondary guitar in here. I feel like if we had to break this into layers, we have the harmony section, which is the chords. We have the rhythm section because we are arpeggiating the chords. And we also turned it into like a melodic motif. So really, we already have all three layers except for the contrast layer fulfilled. Now, because we're playing lower frequencies, I could technically call this a contrast layer. So it's all four layers in this one thing. And I think people tend to overly stuff their music. You know, again, this video can only be so long, but I also, for all these four layers or you know, four components, you can also add what's called an expression layer. Okay, so it's kind of like me speaking like this. I can speak like this. That's more expressive. And what we could do is add that over top of our existing melody stuff. Now, an example of a rhythm expression could be a hi-hat roll or something fast like that. A contrast expression could be a bass line slide. Harmony expression could be you simply using chord bends when you play your chords. Top line expression could be the same thing, pitch bending your top line. So these are more, some people may call them accents, okay, but I call them expressions. Let me do one thing here. Let me set the pitch range here. I think once you set it to 12, it should have a 2 semitone. So now we can add these little accents. Let's just record this. My brain was thinking too much. Why is my ear here? See, now we have more movement. It's so subtle. This little, I'll call it a contrast expression. But that little pitch bend, it guides the ear throughout this whole, and it's so subtle. See how it adds that extra like emotion? And we barely did anything. Okay, let's try one more thing. I said this video, how long is this video right now? 30 minutes. I need you guys to smash the like button, share with a friend, because I'm giving you guys basically the keys. The next technique we're going to do is called inversion. And with the inversion, we usually do a second inversion. Basically just means we're going to make a chord here. We're going to take the bottom two notes and raise them up an octave. So this is like your Scott Storch type sound. Hold on, let me move this to the other guitar here. I did not expect this to be 30 minutes long. Okay, so now we just have to, is this the same? Okay, so let's add some timing to it. It's a little slow, let me speed this up. Now, because this is kind of thin, let's duplicate the root note down an octave and also take the fifth, which is, man, this chord is all jangled up. So the root note is technically E and the fifth is B. So we're just going to reinforce this chord with the root note. So, okay, so starting at D would, you know, using all the white notes, our chord would be DFA. And if I were to raise F up an octave, and add D, it would look like this. Okay, so now E. So now, again, I have to shortcut a lot of, my thought process here. When you click in notes, it's just more difficult simply by just translating from shapes to MIDI notes. But anyhow, this is the third, and we need to figure out which chord works with this. So the easiest way is really just pull it down. My ear here is B. Oh, I forgot this is supposed to be up an octave. And again, the formula here is that these are 7 notes away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I don't have to think about how to figure out the note. I just count up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. Now to get to this note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are all 5 notes away. So let's copy this note. Add it up 5 notes once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so again, my favorite thing to do is transpose this to a different key. Let's pull it down a semitone. So this note here, let's pull this. I had the wrong note here. There we go. Okay, now let's add that little expression layer. There we go. So let's just add that little. Okay, so I hit the wrong note one time. It's all good. Let's just fix that. See how once you have the bass, B-A-S-E to the melody, everything else is just filling in the gaps. So we came up with a lot of melodies today. Let's go back and kind of see what we made. Okay, so I forgot what BPM all these are in. I'll add a melody I made earlier. Forgot I made that. You guys will get the project files for free, so don't try to memorize all this stuff. I made that one earlier. Now this technique earlier that I did is we added ninth chords here. We just omitted the fifth. And then I added like a little, that delay doesn't sound good on this part because it's so fast. And then I added just a little run thing. All right, so that top line was more of an improv. We could have spent more time on the improv on that one. But as you guys can see, all these principles stack up to create different styles of guitar. Now, of course, it's all by ear, but you guys now have the keys to figure out what makes a guitar sound a certain way. If you guys want to learn more, go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials, and I'll see you guys on the other side. I'll leave a link below. Peace out, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.